Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is September 3rd, 2020, and this is a subject what we've spoken about on and off for the entire time that this show has been in production, and that is menopause. Because since I started doing this show 14 years ago to today, it seems like the word still hasn't gotten out to women. I don't know why that is. We're going to be talking about menopause with a doctor who has spent his career not only helping women, but helping physicians help women. Dr. David Rosensweet in just a moment. But of course, we have to thank our title sponsor first, Legendary Foods. The website is eatlegendary.com. The coupon code is SHR10, and you'll get 10% off of everything you buy there. If you're a low carb, high protein, keto kind of person, then you're going to love Legendary Foods because they make snacks, nut butters, and seasoned nuts that taste decadent, but they're not. You'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to eatlegendary.com, use code SHR10, and show them some love. Bring my guest in, Dr. David Rosensweet. How you doing, Dr. Rosensweet?
I'm good, Carl. Good to see you.
Sorry, I had your microphone. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I started saying years ago that if men went through menopause, physicians would treat it much differently. But too often, and this probably comes along the way with the Industrial Revolution, where women like my mother stayed home and took care of children. They didn't become less productive, so the impact to the household wasn't as dramatic. But menopause derails, and I use that word specifically, derails a large majority of women's lives. It turns them into zombies. They don't recognize themselves. Their families no longer recognize them. When I was a kid, I heard my grandmother talk about it. They called it the change of life. But it was just accepted. It was like, that's part of being a woman. Get used to it. It's not that way anymore, is it?
Well, women are more and more aware and are leading us in awareness, from my perspective. And, they're very involved in very active lives. And that crash that takes place from the total shutdown of ovarian hormones is extremely detrimental. 75% of all women in menopause experience very harsh and life-stopping changes in the beginning, and then all women, almost 100% over the course of time into their 70s, 80s, and 90s, eventually get dismantled by the low hormones and wind up with canes, walkers, wheelchairs, assisted living, and nursing homes. That's how serious that hormonal loss eventually turns out to be.
It's very, very sad. So let's just talk for a second about some of the most overt symptoms of menopause. We have a picture of a woman fanning herself as the image today. Hot flash. That seems to be the number one that moves to the front for women. But there's so many more. Interrupted sleep and night sweats, cognitive decline, lack of energy. In some of the worst cases, subjective and overt tremor. They start to shake. We know estrogen is very protective against neurological diseases like Parkinson's disease, for instance. It's even been implicated in protecting against autoimmunity, and why a lot of women start to develop their autoimmune symptoms as they embark and become perimenopausal. We have all of these overt symptoms that women deal with, right?
Oh, yeah. And, hot flashes are tolerated by most women during the day, but where it really gets them is if it wakes them up in the middle of the night. And it turns out that that's a part of a stress response, and they also squirt out some adrenaline at that time. And that adrenaline hangs out around, and they can lie there and not being able to fall back asleep at night with a racing mind. And then all you have to do is lose 2 or 3 nights of sleep, and that changes life. That's life-changing. The other main reasons that women show up in my offices have related to unexplained weight gain that didn't matter how well they were eating or how much they were exercising, those mood disturbances, the changes to vagina, libido, bladder. And then over time, the changes, the disruptions get deeper and rougher and more challenging as they lose muscle. That makes them eventually turn to canes, walkers, and then that transition time when they transition to wheelchairs. They lose the muscle that holds up the bladder. You get sarcopenia of that labia urani that supports that bladder. And between that and vaginal atrophy, you got a recipe for adult diapers. Depends. The real debilitations occur to almost all women near the end there, in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. But in the young woman, it's the energy, the mood, the libido changes, the changes to the skin, the appearance, and again, just sleep and weight. I would hold those to be the 2 major reasons why women consult with physicians.
So let's talk about fat gain specifically for a second on estrogen. I remember reading a study about 6 or 7 years ago that postulated that the reason peri and postmenopausal women put on a lot of fat, body fat, is that the body is trying to compensate for the lack of ovarian-produced estrogen by increasing stores of aromatase enzyme, which we know lives in fat cells, so that the ability for the body to try to upregulate lipogenesis in order to compensate for the dropping estrogen is the reason. Now, obviously, there are some people say there's other metabolic changes that occur too, but what do you think about that idea that women's bodies start producing fat to produce more estrogen?
Well, I think I like it. I've heard that one, of course. And here's what we know for certain, that testosterone can convert to estradiol biochemically. And testosterone is produced in a woman's ovaries primarily, and it's also produced in a woman's adrenals. And as the ovarian testosterone shuts down, and as ovarian estrogens totally shut down, there is that opportunity to convert her testosterone to estradiol, and thus, as you said, bring alive the estrogens to a certain extent. And yet there's, like you suggested, there's other factors at play. I've always thought, this is a woman's body compensating for the loss of one of her most serious hormones. She can convert her internal testosterone to estradiol. But there's direct reasons why women, as their hormones drop, start putting on weight. And what happens is most hormones are biologically activators. They're very useful in fight or flight. We think of fight or flight being about adrenaline and cortisone. And it is. Those are at the vanguard of any biological stress response. But other hormones are beautifully recruited as well. So thus testosterone, DHEA, estrogen is recruited for the stress response. In fact, when you look at young women Olympic athletes that are on these rigorous training programs, not many of these women are menstruating. Their estrogen's shooting down the stress pathway. It's recruited for that stress rather than for the female functions. They stop menstruating. So what happens when a woman loses her estrogen, she no longer has the estrogen or the DHEA and testosterone to any great degree to participate in the stress response. So what has she got left? Adrenaline and cortisol. And so they increase their causes of insulin resistance. That's the recipe for weight gain, is the insulin resistance caused by the more prominence of the cortisol. So there's that direct reasons for that weight gain from low estrogen increased cortisol, insulin resistance, recipe for weight gain.
Well, and you just embarked on something else that happens to women that they all say this. Every woman going through menopause will say, something happens. The dog gets out, and they just go right from 0 to 100, and they will inevitably say, I used to be able to handle this stuff so easily, and I don't know why. I just can't handle stress anymore. And it's because of what you're saying. I remember reading a study probably 20 years ago that showed that estradiol actually helps suppress adrenaline. It kept the adrenals from kicking in too fast or too hard. So when the body doesn't have enough estrogen, and as you're pointing out, most of that estrogen is actually going to try to manage stress. Well, something that would have happened 20 years ago, the kid dropped something on the floor, and you would have went, oh, don't worry, mommy will clean that up. Now it's like, oh, you SOB, you make me crazy. And so women always say that, don't they? They say, doc, I just can't handle stress anymore.
It occurs for both men and women, interestingly enough. These hormones are at the rock solid base of our feel-good internal biochemistry. And you start stripping away these molecules they're so involved in mood. And man, we all get more irritable, more frail, more reactive. And just for one example, progesterone is the great calmer. And many women, when their progesterone is mountains high in pregnancy, because it skyrockets in pregnancy, they spend part of their day in a Buddha-like state, calm, peaceful, relaxed like never before. If we were to inject the right dose of progesterone intravenous into any woman, or you and I, Carl, we could be put to sleep at a level that surgery could be performed on us. Progesterone is a very unique hormone. It's a major calmer. And you just rip that away. And that alone is reason for anxiety. Or the flip side of that is I've had women patients say to me, boy, I wasn't able to sleep, and you gave me progesterone at bedtime, and now I'm sleeping so much better. And what about if I put some progesterone on during the day? Might that help me with my anxiousness and my anxiety? And I said, what did I know? I said, sure, try it. Just make sure you don't put on too much.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to get sleepy and groggy. You don't want to drive a car. And the women would say to me more than once, well, I've already tried it. It works great. I love progesterone during the daytime.
the old ask for forgiveness instead of permission approach, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. So since we're talking about progesterone, so now let's move to progesterone and estrogen and how they work together. Progesterone and estrogen seem to have a direct effect on blood sugar. I don't know if it's through an insulin sensitizing pathway or some other pathway, and maybe you can elucidate that for us today. But I know that women who suffer from hot flushes or flashes, whatever you want to call them, tend to do much better on a lower carbohydrate diet because they seem to lose the ability to manage those surges and those drops of blood sugar. Their blood sugar seems to get erratic, and that could even be, according to Dr. Mark Gordon, who is a good friend, years and years ago we had this conversation. He said that's why they get hot flashes. If you look at hypoglycemia, what are the symptoms of hypoglycemia? Sweating, anxiety, in severe cases, tremor. Now, what happens to women when they start going through menopause? Anxiety. That modulatory effect of that nice balance between progesterone and estrogen. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's several interplays there. Of course, the menopausal hot flash, which I don't necessarily tie into hypoglycemia as a necessity. It seems to me like thermal changes occur in menopausal women irrespective of their blood glucose. They're very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
A hot flash is very stressful, especially in the middle of the night. And like I was saying, it triggers the biology of the stress response. That's adrenaline and cortisol. They're both at the vanguard of that stress response. Both of those are designed to help us fight or flee. And in order to do that, we need some majorly, easily findable fuel. We need glucose. In fact, cortisol is called a glucocorticoid, and adrenaline raises blood glucose. And so they get a hot flash. That's stressful. They get a surge of adrenaline and cortisol. That raises the blood glucose. But it's a very artificial situation. They may put up enough insulin to handle what the body thinks is a huge meal. Oh, God, we just had a surge of blood glucose. We must have had a big meal, but there wasn't. And there was more insulin put out than they weren't having a big meal. They were just having a stress response. They get a plummet of blood glucose after they can't keep up with the amount of insulin that was put out there. And this is where I think hypoglycemia and the hot flashes and feather into one another, that a woman who's having hot flashes can also get hypoglycemic from the rapid spike of the elevation of the glucose and then the fall because there was too much insulin put out to handle it. There's another coincidence going on here. If you do blood glucoses on, at least back in the day, on most teenagers, you see them in the 60s and low 70s, mid 70s. And yet, as we grow older, you start seeing that blood glucose start rising, mid 80s, get someone in their 50s, maybe it's brinked over into the 90s. They're starting to get insulin resistance. All of us are. I mean, in medical school, I was taught, given enough time, everyone would become a diabetic. And so there's a lot of different interloping changes there as you start getting into difficulty around the ability to control blood glucose, period. So I'm sorry to be foggy about it, but I think all of those can come to play. And then you take any individual woman and what's prevailing in her. The main thing that's prevailing is they're getting these hot flashes, they're getting woken up in sleep, or they're having glucose regulating problems for a lot of reasons, and they're gaining weight and mood. I'd like to just leave it there for right now.
Right. So I want to phrase this question appropriately, not to be leading. The Women's Health Initiative, did it do good things for hormones and women, or did it do bad things for hormones and women?
Well, it's still in the bad phase. You know, menopause is not a new thing in human history. The Chinese were working with it 1,000 years ago. And in the 40s, the pharmaceutical manufacturers came up with a way to widespread, to produce great quantities of female hormones. They got it through pregnant mares. And by 2002, 40% of American women in menopause, that's 18 million women, were on hormones. And when you talk to these women who are on Premarin and Prempro primarily, they have a lot of gratitude. That helped them quite a bit.
Right.
And then along comes this craziness called the Women's Health Initiative. I use crazy on purpose. And it's a study that they announced to the American public that women who are on hormone are at greater risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke. And what's not known to the American public quite yet is that was inaccurate. They did not have the data to say that. Their own study in 2002 showed that it was a statistically insignificant increase. Statistically insignificant. In science, that means there was no provable increase. And there was an argument on the original study committee as it was about to go to publish. And some of the study committee said, you can't publish that there's increased risk. There's no statistical significance to the increased risk with one of the two arms of the study, the Prempro. But the leader of that committee said it's too late. The JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, has already printed this, and the press got a hold of it, and it exploded out into the world. And women and health professionals got terrified that they were going to get breast cancer, heart attack, or stroke. And it was wrong information. At the time, I was treating women in menopause. I was really concerned about it. And I dived into that study along with my colleagues and went, wait a minute, there's all kinds of problems with this study. This isn't real. But, the cats were out of the bag. By 2006, the science was in that there was not increased risk. And in 2017, in the Journal of American Medical Association, the original study committee put out an article saying, after 18 years of follow-up of women on both Premarin and Prempro, there is no increased risk. They retracted that original statement that poisoned America. This is best described in a fantastic book called Estrogen Matters by an American oncologist, Dr. Avram Blooming. He gives the full scientific evidence for how, and listen to this, Carl, this was what was always true and is true to this very day. Women who are treated with hormones, no matter what those hormones are, Premarin or Prempro, are at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke than women who go untreated. And what's more, women who have had breast cancer and have had that breast cancer treated properly, they do have an increased risk of recurrence than a young woman who never had breast cancer has of getting breast cancer. They have an increased risk of recurrence, but they have less of a risk of recurrence if they are treated with hormones than if they go untreated. That's the science. How many people know that these days? How many doctors know that?
No one. And doctors ignore it. Doctors ignore this sort of stuff. They just scare their patients away from even considering hormone replacement therapy. And, so I will say this. Methylated drugs cause hepatic stress. That hepatic stress has been associated with increase in thrombotic index. It's been associated with what the frank effects of liver damage. So when you're looking at these pharmaceutical approaches, you do have that, right? But if you tease that out and you say, well, we're giving bioidenticals, we're using creams, we're using troches, we're using pellets, there are no modifications to this molecule. This molecule of estradiol looks exactly as the same as the molecule of estradiol this woman is making. The body cannot distinguish between the two. Then how can you argue that estradiol causes all of these problems when young women don't have these problems and they have the highest estradiol levels that they'll ever have in their 20s and 30s? They should all be getting ovarian cancer, breast cancer, stroke, and all this sort of stuff, and they don't. It's almost like, I've always said on this show, be a critical thinker. When what you know to be true differs from what you're reading in science, go with what you know to be true, because science changes, medicine changes, it's always unfolding. And the problem we have, and I can't blame the doctors because their hands are tied. If they don't approach things from the standard of care, then there's litigation, they lose their licenses, they lose everything. But it's really sad because so many women, my sister was on HRT. She was taking Premarin and Prempro. She was taking both of them, right? That's one is progesterone, one is estrogen. And she got that information from the Women's Initiative. She stopped on her own, never went back to her doctor about it. 5 years later, she developed Parkinson's disease. And from all the research I've read, estradiol is protective against Parkinson's disease. The early research that they did, there's an Italian doctor in Toronto who did some fantastic studies with rodents where she infused estradiol or saline and gave the rodents MPTP, which causes spontaneous Parkinsonisms. And the rodents that got the saline, they developed tremors within minutes and hours of getting the MPTP. But the other rodents, it was 6 weeks. They finally stopped. They pulled the plug. They never developed Parkinsonism because the estradiol was protective. And my poor sister and lots of poor women out there got this message and thought, oh, I'm not going to take this stuff. It's going to give me a heart attack. It's going to give me a stroke. It's going to give me all these disorders. And, that has to be frustrating as a physician, right? You've got to be frustrated at stuff like that.
Well, I mean, one of my practices is to be aware that I was born in these times, and these are challenged times. The consciousness isn't all that it could be, and to have a good ride, and realize that we are facing lack of honesty, lack of integrity, lack of golden rule, vested interest, lack of consciousness. So I'm born into these times, and I'm quite willing to, have as much influence on it as I possibly can. But you raised a couple really crucial points there. I mean, estrogen has long been known to be protective to the brain and very important in brain function. And for example, I'm sitting down having lunch with a 65-year-old African-American physician and her son in Washington, D.C., and she's telling me her story. She, in her mid-50s, she's practicing medicine, and she's starting not to be able to think clearly. Cognitive challenge is one of those super common experiences that women report early on in menopause. And she was saying it started to scare her, but it really started to terrify her because her mother had full-blown dementia, as did her mother's sister, full-blown dementia. And here she is losing her ability to keep her practice together and thinking she's going to have to quit. And she started herself on estradiol and kept on increasing it, and she totally cleared up. I'm just choosing one example. I could give so many. I'm dealing with someone in a very high up United States government advisory board, and this particular woman is required to think super clearly and super scientifically. The level at which she engages me in conversations sort of staggers me, and she was losing her ability to think clearly, and she thought, my career is really challenged here. Put her on a simple hormone program. Within a month, she's saying, thank you, I'm myself again.
Right.
These hormones are so dramatic, and they're so dramatically beneficial. And that whole story you told about the mice, and there's well known that estrogen can help prevent dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's has got a lot of possibilities, but when I think of a woman who's got slipping cognition, the very first thing I turn to is addressing estrogen. Giving her back.
Your website is davidrosensweetmd.com, and David is spelled DavidRosenSweetMD.com. If you're watching the show, if you're listening to the show, you want to reach out to Dr. Rosensweet, you can. If you're a physician and you would like to be trained to help women and men with their hormones, please reach out to Dr. Rosensweet at his website. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more of Superhuman Radio. Stay tuned.
Among the easiest and most popular ways to experience the life-altering benefits of hemp, Planet Earth CBD soft gels offer fast-acting effects as they release quickly. Made in a GMP-compliant, US FDA-registered facility, you can count on Planet Earth's safe soft gels. These soft gels provide temporary relief from pain and so much more. Manufactured with the calming combination of chamomile and melatonin, you got yourself a long-needed CBD solution. 25 milligrams of nano-emulsified hemp extract per serving with anti-inflammatory agency. Planet Earth sleep-supporting soft gels will have you forgetting about today's worries for a better tomorrow. Unwind with Planet Earth CBD today.
Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free meat snack sample pack with every order of $75 or more. Get yours today at selectsavory.com/SHR. Use code SHR free. Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis, you won't feel as good as you could. Studies have shown the power of infrared sauna. Infrared penetrates 1 to 2 inches into the body. It helps those with back pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, and anxiety. Patients get relief from infrared sauna. The Good Health Sauna has been shown to be an exercise mimetic, conveying many of the same benefits as cardio. There are a lot of reasons people buy a Good Health Sauna, but the bottom line is you will be a much happier, healthier person by using the Good Health Sauna every day. You'll crave it, you'll love it, and it will be the best purchase you have ever made. Good Health Saunas provide commercial-grade saunas for in-home and commercial use, backed by the best lifetime warranty in the industry. Unmatched customer service and the best financing makes owning one easy and will fit any budget. Go to goodhealthsauna.com/superhumanradio to learn more and save 25% off. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers. Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis,
Want to improve mental energy and focus? Try the new Superhuman Stack from Pure Nootropics. Stack Dynamine, L-Butamin, Theocrine, and palmitoyl ethanolamide together and feel the lights go on in your brain. Find your perfect mix of these four. Carl likes 1 cap of each and 2 caps of Dynamine. Bam! Lights on. Go to shrnetwork.biz/superhuman stack, all one word, today, and get yours for 25% off plus free shipping. That's shrnetwork.biz/superhuman stack.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
welcome back. We're talking with Dr. David Rosensweet. We're talking about menopause. And you know what? I've done so many shows on menopause. And why do I keep doing shows on menopause? Because women still don't have good information on menopause. And the reality is that doctors out there don't have good information. If you're a GP, chances are you're not going to treat a woman with HRT. And there's a lot of gynecologists. I have women who email me who say, my gynecologist said, don't get on HRT. You're going to get ovarian cancer. You know, you're going to get this. You're going to get that. It's really sad because women's are being influenced to make bad decisions with bad health outcomes. And it's startling to me. A lot of women are told to turn to natural, black cohosh, these different oils and these different supplements. And my attitude is, you are stop. Uh-oh. There you are. What do you think about these natural alternatives, Dr. Rosensweet?
Well, although there are situations that I think herbs and supplements are good supportive to any treatment program, I would say no for menopause. The issue is that there are molecules, there's these hormones in a woman's body that once were robust and now they're low. And you've got the exact same molecule to replenish those hormones. And you don't have to take them up to youthful levels. It's not necessary. But we know the perfect target zone for where those hormones should be. And I would say absolutely not. This is an instance where you want to give the woman's body what the woman's body is missing. And you don't want to try and do workarounds. And not only that, I don't hear these fabulous reports about how these multitude of remedies really address what's going on, especially over the long run, especially for loss of muscle, loss of bone, loss of thinking clearly. I don't get it. So, and the changes are so adverse to the woman from not having the hormones that I say, I don't think an individual woman should hold herself to be a scientific experiment, should try workarounds. I think she ought to try what her body really loves. And you know what else, Carl, is when you do a rigorous program to get a woman right in the perfect zone for her, they love it.
Yeah.
They absolutely love it. They feel like they've gotten their life back. their sleep back, their energy, their mood, their libido, their thinking. And what they don't even know is they're getting their bones preserved, they're getting their muscles preserved. But this isn't rocket surgery. You talk to a woman who's been treated properly, and she is one of the biggest fans of anything you're ever run into, because it gives her, without much intervention, with just taking a few identical molecules, she feels terrific again. And what she doesn't know is how deep that replacement goes to protect her brain, her bone, her arteries, her vagina, her bladder, to keep her walking and talking and playing with her grandchildren and being able to get down on the floor or climb a flight of steps and think clearly and play mahjong or whatever into her elderly years. And most of all, it's the long term. What's the best way to stay out of assisted living and depends and nursing homes? It's these hormones. There's nothing like them in the world to leverage. Staying at home, happy, living, healthy, being a great-great-grandmother, and really enjoying the ride.
Dr. Dale Bredesen, who published a fantastic book called The End of Alzheimer's, has been on my show a few times. He came on the very first time after he treated 20 patients at UCLA. And he wasn't allowed to say he reversed Alzheimer's disease because there's no test for Alzheimer's disease. But he reversed all the symptoms. And one of the things that he will not budge on, that if someone wants to use his protocol, is HRT for men and women. And he explains this. He explains how they protect against the different types of Alzheimer's disease or dementia that we have: wet, dry, inflammatory, so on and so forth. And you spoke a moment ago about estrogen being very, very protective of the brain. Well, everyone loves to talk about inflammation. They love to say how, inflammation is implicated in every disease state. And that's true. It's factual. What they fail to talk about is that through a receptor called FAF, fibroblast activation factor, the estradiol molecule docks in it and activates it. We see this in blunt force trauma. You're in a car, your head hits the windshield. The brain starts to swell immediately. The brain has aromatase enzyme in it. The aromatase enzyme starts to aromatize androgens and produce estradiol, and estradiol stops the inflammation, pushes it back down, stops it. You can't talk about inflammatory disorders in women and then at the same time say to them, take black cohosh, you don't need estradiol.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might be frozen. Can you hear me, Carl?
No, I can hear you now. You were frozen for a nanosecond. It was good.
I mean, I have tremendous respect for Dr. Bredesen, and I've definitely read his book in great detail. And to not lead with these neuroprotective, neurothriving biochemicals. And as you were mentioning trauma, there are many human beings who have trauma to the head, and one of the things they're given is large doses of progesterone, yet another hormone, ovarian hormone. Common treatment these days. But you've said it, Carl. I mean, these magical ovarian hormones, they have a widespread influence. All hormones do. Thyroid hormone, adrenal hormones, ovarian hormones, testicular hormones. These are the most powerful biochemicals in our body. And you can look everywhere in our body. You're going to see beneficial impact there.
So the other thing that is fascinating today, two areas I want to talk about. The first is the microbiome. So we're all fascinated by the microbiome. It's emerging. What we know about it is limited, but it's exciting. Well, one of the things that I've learned on this show by doing numerous individual interviews with numerous scientists who publish studies is that sex hormones influence microbiome diversity. So, for instance, estradiol influences a microbe in the gut called L. reuteri. L. reuteri is closely tied to the production of oxytocin. When L. reuteri is high, oxytocin levels are high. Now, we know that women, as they go through menopause, it's often said by their husbands and their families that they lose the ability to be empathetic. They just don't have the patience. They don't have that bonding feeling anymore. They don't have that loving feeling anymore. And we know that oxytocin is the peptide hormone that is responsible for that phenomenon. But a more recent study we just talked about last month showed that giving female rodents oxytocin increased bone mineralization. It actually reversed osteoporosis and osteopenia. So when you look at this matrix, this harmony that's in the body, cascade of events that change, and estradiol, testosterone, progesterone affect the microbiome, and we know that as we get older, our guts give us problems. It could just be as simple as replacing hormones to get your gut back in shape.
Well, there is a very important relationship, and you're pointing out one of them, and it's really everything's got to work in the human body reasonably well. And that gut, you're bringing up the big subject that I think you've probably been so deep into for so many years, the importance of the intestinal tract and the critters that live therein. And yeah, there's a symbiosis with estrogen, the estrogen excretion through the liver, estrogen arrival in the gut, estrogen interaction with the gut biome, the dissociation and recycling of estrogen through the breaking up of one of its binding sites. I mean, you want to believe in the divine, just study the human body and that intricacy that's involved there. And the main thing is keep all these working parts in order, keep them reasonable. We're living a lot longer now. And if you want to, I think that story about oxytocin is absolutely fascinating. You want to give these chance, all of our body, give us the good stuff that's going to keep the big functions happening, is a gross way to look at it.
When women come to you and they are want to talk about hormone replacement therapy, but they seem apprehensive because of the overwhelming amount of negative information out there, unfairly negative information out there, do you just show them the science and let them make their own decisions, or do you try to convince them?
Excellent question. And we have a very rigorous program that's A to Z. And imperative for all the doctors that I train is that during the first visit, the physician or nurse practitioner brings up this very topic. Because I can tell you this, Carl, in 25 years of working with women, I can't think of a single woman who hasn't shown up in that first visit after 2002 that wasn't afraid she was going to get breast cancer if she did the hormones. So we proactively bring up the subject. And here's what I've learned after all the years. If myself as a doctor or the doctors that I train, we know in our bones that we're all at risk for all kinds of diagnoses. We're all at risk for cancers. Men have an increased risk propensity for prostate cancer. Women have an increased risk for breast cancer for very significant reasons. But given that, what we know about the science is that women who are treated with hormones are at less risk, like I was saying. And what I find my patients want, and I want the doctors to have, is that I know in my bones that that's the science, because I have dived deep into that science. And these days, it's really easy to come by one single book. It's this one over my shoulder here, right there. Estrogen Matters will give any physician or nurse practitioner more science than they can handle to show that women treated with hormones are at less risk. But your question was this: what do we do? What I find is what the woman wants is she doesn't need to go to medical school. She doesn't need a long dissertation. She needs to get a sense that she trusts me, and she gets a sense that I know in my bones through my research that she's at less risk. And once I make those three statements to her, and I tell her, this has been a subject of great interest, I know the science on this one, and this is it. You're at less risk being treated with hormones no matter what you've heard. Now, if a woman, after hearing that from me, is a little nervous, my objective is not to get her out of the office with hormones. My objective is to respect that discomfort. And I'll say to her, well, listen, I can point you, maybe why don't we take, there's no emergency here. Right. Why don't you take your time and get some more input, get some more opinions, and here's some books to read, and you'll learn more about it yourself. And then I want you to make the decision that feels right to you, no matter what your intuition is.
Right.
Because there is a risk of breast cancer. And some of these women, it takes 10 to 15 years to develop breast cancer. Some of these women might have some intuition that I just don't want to do it. So anyway, we respect the women. And here's what happens most of the time. The symptoms get worse. They get more motivated. They've done the research. They come back and they really want it. It's not 100%, but we don't try and skew them towards this, not listening to their own resistance. We want them to respect their own intuition and arrive at their choice on their own, because we do not want a woman applying hormones to her body twice a day, rubbing on her arms, thinking, well, I'm doing these hormones, but I might get breast cancer. We don't want that. So we go out of our way to help them with that subject of risk.
We're going to take our last commercial break. Let's give people the website again. If you want to reach out to Dr. Rosensweet, it's David, D-A-V-E-D, rosensweetmd.com. When we come back, we're going to talk about his book. And also, I want to talk about the fact that getting on HRT doesn't mitigate the damage you do to your body with a bad lifestyle. I want to make sure that people understand this, because I have a cousin that went through this, and I had an argument with her. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Then later in the show, after Dr. Rosensweet leaves, I'm going to tell you why I have been fascinated with menopause for so long. Because back in 2002, when I was using a lot of performance-enhancing drugs and powerlifting, I actually went through menopause. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Did you know that your gut is referred to as your second brain? In fact, at least 90% of your serotonin, your happiness chemical, is created in your gut. If you don't take care of your gut, you won't feel good, period. Bioptimizers recently released Cognibiotics, a new breakthrough probiotic formula that is clinically proven to enhance your brain function, your mood, and overall mental health. Most probiotics often include conflicting strains or quantities and can cancel each other out. Cognibiotics delivers the exact strain you need in exactly the right ratios and quantities. With a 365-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee, you can try them out for yourself to start feeling the incredible difference Cognibiotics makes in your mood, mind, and performance. For an exclusive offer to my listeners, go to cognibiotics.com/SHR. That's COGNIBIOTICS.com/SHR and use code SHR10. I love beef. And if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender, with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 25% off all beef and free shipping on orders of $100 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to Piedmontese.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free meat snack sample pack with every order of $75 or more. Get yours today at selectsavory.com/SHR. Use code SHR free. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000. Or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to Redcon redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon 1 banner ads today. Chronic stress leaves us tired, distracted, and physically vulnerable. Apollo Neuro is here to help you take control. Apollo Neuro is a new wearable that trains your nervous system to be more resilient to stress. Apollo's gentle vibrations use your sense of touch to help you recover from stress, going from fight or flight to rest and digest, so you can relax, get to sleep, focus, and stay healthy. Developed by physicians and neuroscientists, Apollo Neuro has been tested in multiple clinical trials and is proven to improve heart rate variability, the key biometric of stress. Special offer for friends of Superhuman Radio. Try Apollo Neuro today and get 15% off your purchase at apolloneuro.com/superhuman. That's APOLLONEURO.com/superhuman.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. David Rosensweet. We're talking about menopause. Real quick, I'm going to put this up. I just found this out. Dr. Rosensweet said anybody who goes to the website menopausemethod.com, you can download a free copy of his book, Happy Healthy Hormones, How to Thrive in Menopause. Doesn't get any better than that. Free is great stuff right there. So check that out. Again, it's menopausemethod.com. Download the free PDF of his book. Thank you so much for doing that, Dr. Rosensweet.
And so, excuse me 1 minute, Carl. What they actually have to do is just send us an email through support@menopausemethod.com, which is in contact us, and give us your email address and we'll email it to you.
Okay, there you go. There you go. So the other thing that I want to mention is that a lot of women may be lulled into thinking that if they get on HRT, they can continue to live a crappy lifestyle. And HRT won't protect you. There are a lot of women out there who will blame their breast cancer or some other malady on their HRT. When you look at them, you see they're grossly obese. They don't sleep. They eat horrible choices in foods. They don't exercise. So HRT isn't going to make you bulletproof. It's not going to make you indestructible. In fact, if you are living a crappy, there's a responsibility that comes when back in the day, and funny, I'm going to talk about this later. You know, when I was using lots of performance-enhancing drugs, there was a responsibility to train right, sleep right, eat right, because you're putting your body under great stresses, and you owed it to yourself to squeeze every single bit of performance enhancement out of that as you could. And kind of similar statement, I would say to women, if you get on HRT, it's not going to protect you against a horrible lifestyle. You still have to get your lifestyle straightened out. You'll just make better progress. What do you think of that statement?
100%. I don't have anything to add, really. I mean, any illness that anyone ever gets, including cancer, has thousands of preceding factors. 1,000 times where you ate the wrong food and it gave you a rough time, where it compromised your immune system, where it changed your intestinal flora and changed your immune system, where stress knocked your immune system off kilter, where you ate a diet where you didn't exercise, and all the ravages of that. And these thousands of impacts are what cause illnesses, including cancer. It's not natural hormones. Your body loves hormones, and like you pointed out earlier, young women have tremendously high. So do young men. No, but it are those adversities that add up, and so it does. I just agree with you 100%. I probably shouldn't have said anything, Carl. You named it.
What about alcohol? A lot of physicians, when women start going through menopause, they tell the woman, "Well, just have a glass of wine in the evening. It'll help you sleep," which is not true. It'll make you sleepy, but it won't help you sleep. And then sometimes women take that too far. I know friends who say their wives drink an entire bottle of wine every single night. They're basically self-medicating. What about physicians that tell their female patients, just have a glass of wine, enjoy your life?
Well, I think anyone who's paid attention to their health or has had a major healing to do, or even a moderate healing to do, comes to the conclusion that, man, we got to really reduce stuff that's challenging to us. And alcohol is challenging. And I can't get around that. I do well with a glass of wine or a beer, maybe once a week.
Right.
If I start getting it up to twice a week, I'm 78. And I can tell you, you want to take care of yourself. And I know people's livers. I know how they process all the stuff they have to process. I think it's a total myth that we can drink alcohol every day. I can't believe people who drink alcohol every day.
Cool.
I'm not
Thanks.
trying to judge them for it. I'm just looking at the perspective of, if you've got healing to do, and we all do, and you want to live long and strong, a glass of wine a week, maybe two would be stretching it a bit, I would say.
I'm on your team with that. In fact, I say to people when they try to convince me that this study said wine is good, and this study said 2 ounces of alcohol a day are good because it's hermetic, I say, well, it's so good. Give it to your dog. Give it to your baby. No,
Yeah,
you won't do that. Well, it must not be good if you won't give it to your dog and you won't give it to your baby. So yeah, I'm with you. Look, I'm Italian, and if I go out to dinner, there's a whole ritual, and alcohol is included in it. But I feel horrible for days afterwards, and I know that it can't be good for me. Hell, alcohol is a neurotoxin. So is mercury. I mean, alcohol intoxicates. The word is used because it's toxic to the GABA receptors of the brain. That's why you get bleary headed. I mean, if I hit you in the head with a hammer and you were wobbling, would you say, man, that's great, I got a good buzz now, hit me again? No, you wouldn't say that. But yet somehow alcohol bypasses all critical thinking for some reason. I don't know why. Talk about your book. Your book has been out for a while, and I'm going to put this back up here so people know how to get a free copy of it. If they go to menopausemethod.com, they have to send an email through the website, and then you'll request their email. You'll get the email address and request the book, and they'll send it back. Talk about the book. It's been out for a while. Doctors turn to it, but patients can read this too, right? This will help people as well.
Well, I designed this one for patients. We have a very special online, rigorous 13-hour course for doctors and nurse practitioners. This I designed for patients. And I originally did it because I knew about individualization in women. And I had a sense that women were going to arrive at the best balance and best dose if they knew certain things about the process of dose determination. And I needed them in the beginning to partner with them because the hormones were going into their body and they had an internal sense of what it felt right and when it didn't. So I decided to give them enough knowledge that they could be real good determiners of the optimal dose and balance of each of the 4 hormones. And then, of course, we have the great advantage of being able to do accurate testing on them to finalize and tweak those dosages. And then I find that a lot of women, they really like to understand what's going on here. There's a big decision. They like to know what's happening. And so I wrote it for them. And this is its 5th edition, actually. And I'm very proud of it. I love it. I think, and women tend to love it as well. So I think a woman going into menopause informed is a better way to go because we're talking about 30, 40 years of treatment here. You want to get this one right. You want to understand certain things about it. But the bottom line is you need to align with a medical professional who also knows their stuff. And bottom line, the women don't have to know the science, but what they do have to do is they have to connect with a healthcare provider that really understands a lot about menopause so they can get that right. They can get the proper dose, the proper balance, the proper testing, the proper follow-up. So the book is fun, the book is great, the book is useful, but the main thing they need is someone who really knows what they're doing.
Very good.
That's how I spend my days. I spend 80% of my time training and mentoring physicians and nurse practitioners on how to get great at this, how to specialize in this.
That's wonderful. Dr. Rosensweet, I want to thank you so much for making time to come on the show.
Carl, it's a pleasure to meet you and to hang out with you.
Same.
Pioneering.
I think we did a good interview today, and I think we're going to help some women. Thank you so much for being here. You have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Right? Take care.
Bye-bye.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you a story about Carl Lenore in 2002, when I actually felt what it feels like to go through menopause. I'm not lying to you. I hadn't planned on telling this story, but I think it's worthwhile because it's why I say if men went through menopause, they would treat it differently. Stay tuned.
Mind Bullet is a kratom product derived from the coffee family to boost energy and creative juices. Mind Bullet comes in both pill and liquid form for the ultimate pre-workout supplement. When needing a little pick-me-up or to get through the morning fog, Mind Bullet will set your productive course fast. Go to shrnetwork.biz/mindbullet, all one word, today, and save 20%. No subscription required. That's shrnetwork.biz/mindbullet. Get yours today. New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it. Among the easiest and most popular ways to experience the life-altering benefits of hemp, Planet Earth CBD soft gels offer fast-acting effects as they release quickly. Made in a GMP-compliant, US FDA-registered facility, you can count on Planet Earth's safe soft gels. These soft gels provide temporary relief from pain and so much more. Manufactured with the calming combination of chamomile and melatonin, you got yourself a long-needed CBD solution. 25 milligrams of nano-emulsified hemp extract per serving with anti-inflammatory agency. Planet Earth sleep-supporting soft gels will have you forgetting about today's worries for a better tomorrow. Unwind with Planet Earth CBD today.
Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus Lifting Company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do those with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus Lifting Company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do those with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
I think some of you will find this an interesting story. And some of you will probably just tune out. So back in 2002, I was experimenting with lots of different performance-enhancing drugs. I was using fairly high doses of trenbolone, testosterone, and I started to play around with aromatase inhibitors because I heard that, you know, like everybody, they make more dry muscle, right? You're going to lose body fat, you're going to lose water, you're going to look leaner, you're going to look striated and ripped. And so I started using some pretty strong aromatase inhibitors that were available, not by prescription, ATD, which many of you who remember ATD know that it was horrible stuff. It was very strong. It was a suicide inhibitor. It attached itself to the aromatase enzyme, and it stayed there. And it was probably stronger, milligram for milligram. Well, maybe not, but it was strong. The doses that I was taking, it was stronger than anastrozole. And so I was doing great. I was getting strong. I was getting muscular. I was losing weight. Because don't forget, back then it was all about losing the body fat that I had accumulated and getting strong, and it was working. Everything was working. Everything was clicking along. I was sleeping well. Everything was fantastic until it wasn't. And it literally wasn't in like a day. I remember going to sleep one night and waking up in the morning and thinking, man, I didn't even move in my sleep that night. I must have slept so good. Then that night, I remember it was like yesterday. That night I went to sleep just like I always did. And about an hour and a half after I went to sleep, I woke up. But I woke up in like a panic attack. I was like, I just felt bad. I didn't know what it was. I remember getting out of bed. I couldn't get back to sleep. I went downstairs, and I had young children at the time. My youngest daughter was still a baby. Not a baby. She was probably like 8 or 9 years old at the time. And 2 older children in middle school. And so I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, so one bad night, and I got up with the kids in the morning. So I was already up. The kids got up. I got them ready for school. I drove them to school. I went to the gym and trained. Of course, I did a bunch of caffeine to get through the fact that I didn't sleep. But then that night again, it happened again. I went to sleep. I was sleeping about an hour and a half. I woke up and I was like freaked out. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Like, why am I dying? Something's wrong with me. And then this happened every night. So that's how it started. After it happened enough nights, I started to become angst-ridden about going to sleep. Like, it's horrible to feel this way. Like, I can't believe now I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to be up in an hour and a half. And I was taking GABA. I didn't have Valium available at that point in time, but I was taking GABA. I was taking melatonin. And it progressively got worse over the next weeks and months. I started to develop subjective tremor. I felt like my body was vibrating. I remember telling a friend of mine, I felt like somebody stuck a vibrator up my butt and my whole body was just vibrating. But no one touched anyone, because I went to the doctors. I said, I feel like my body is shaking. And he touched me. He goes, you're not shaking. I says, you don't feel that tremor? He says, no, I don't feel anything. That's called subjective tremor. You feel it, but other people can't. It's not overt where the muscles are actually undulating. Then the anxiety got worse and worse and worse. I was working for a company and traveling every week on business. I remember going to Baltimore to see a client. And the anxiety was horrible. I developed this anxiety. It was just like, and then I did go to the doctor. And he gave me Valium, he gave me lorazepam, Ativan. He gave me Ativan. I was taking 0.5 milligram of Ativan as I needed it, he told me. So I remember I was in a parking lot. I was in a hotel. I got in my car. I'm suffering from anxiety. It's really freaking me out. I'm driving to the appointment. As I am driving to the appointment, I'm going through the technical stuff I'm going to have to talk about, because I was in the alarm business back then. I was selling security devices, electronic security devices made by a very, very wonderful company in Israel. And when I got to the guy's parking lot, I was like, I can't go in there. Like, I'm so freaking nervous. I don't know what's wrong with me. I literally called the guy from my cell phone, and I was about to tell him that I can't make it. I'm in his parking lot. I was about to lie to him and say, like, I'm in traffic. I got a late start, blah, blah, blah. Can we move the appointment to tomorrow? Because I was going to be in Baltimore all week. And he answered. And for some reason, I said, hey, I'll be up in a minute. And I hung up and I went upstairs. The whole time I'm in the appointment, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, can this guy tell I'm freaked out? Does my face look weird? And I got through the appointment. And so I started to develop what are considered hot flashes. I would just start sweating and my body would get hot and like red, my chest, my face, and I would just start burning, and it would last for maybe 10 minutes real time. With me, why am I feeling like this? Why is my body burning up right now? So when I got home from that trip in Baltimore, I decided to find answers on my own, because I wasn't sleeping. I was up all night. I used to call myself the ghost. I used to say it to my ex-wife, I'm haunting the house, because I would go to sleep. An hour and a half later, I'd wake up, and then I'd stay up all night until everybody else got up. So everybody's sleeping soundly. I go walk through the halls. I'd look in the door. My son Chase is sleeping. I'd look in the door. My daughter Taylor is sleeping. Sydney was little. She was in her little bed. Everybody's sleeping, but I'm the ghost. I'm haunting the house. That's what I used to say. So I started Googling my symptoms. I don't even think they had Google back then. I'm trying to think who the search engine of choice was back in 2002. But I'm looking for, maybe it was Yahoo. I'm putting my symptoms in, right? Subjective, because my doctor told me it was called subjective tremor. Subjective tremor, anxiety. Of course, I was depressed. I'm not like, hey, this is really great. I'm sick, depression, and insomnia, and inevitably, every time I would put the list of symptoms that I was experiencing into the search engine, I would end up at a women's menopause website. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to start posting. And so back then on the boards, I was Triceptor. So I just used Triceptor, and it was called Power Surge. I think the website is still out there. And Power Surge website is where women go who have menopause, who have bad symptoms, to share information and share their stories. And I lurked for a long, long time because I'm like, I'm a dude. Like, I'm not going to post anything. But then when I started to understand what was going on with my body, and I understood that I crashed my endocrine system is what I did. But more importantly, I suppressed estradiol. I started to understand what I was doing. I started to understand what I needed to do. I tried PCT. It didn't work. I had to get back on testosterone. And I got back on testosterone, and my hormones started to stabilize. More importantly, my estradiol started to come up. I started to feel better. I started to sleep again. A lot of the symptoms started to go away. And I started to experiment with low-carb diets at that time because I noticed that, like, if I ate when I started to do low carb, I noticed I was able to sleep longer at night. And I also noticed that the hot flashes, like, just started going away. And then I was on business in Connecticut, and we went out to dinner with clients, and I ate like a big piece of chocolate cake. And I went back to the room that night, and I went to sleep, and I woke up, and bam, it was back. It was like bad anxiety, bad with it. And so then I started to put two and two together, like eating sugar and carbs before bed, no good, because I would have this rebound, like the doctor was just talking about. Insulin would come out too hard, and I'd be hypoglycemic, and I'd be anxiety ridden, and I'd have the tremors again. And I remember one night I got so sick. I woke up. I not only had the tremors so bad, this is before I started making the connection to diet and stuff like that, but I was freezing. So I took my body temperature. My body temperature was like 95 point something. I drove myself to the emergency room at Baptist Hospital. And when I got there, my body temperature was cold. And they put me, I went into the ER, they put me in a room for observation, doctors coming in and asking me questions. Of course, I was stupid and was honest back then. Well, I was using performance, I didn't say performance, I was using trenbolone and all this other stuff, and that's in my record now, obviously. And after being in the ER for about 5 or 6 hours, my body temperature stabilized. It went back to like 97.9 or something like that. And they said, well, you're fine now, you can go home. And I went home. But I woke up more than a few times in the middle of the night with such bad anxiety that I was contemplating driving myself to the hospital. This particular time, I did it because my body temperature was so low, and I thought, maybe I'm dying. These are the things that hormone imbalances can do to you. That's why when doctors say to women who are going through menopause, it's all in your head, I'd like to punch them in their mouths. I really would, because I went through menopause. I know what it's like. It freaks you out. Your life is derailed. You become unproductive. All you can think about is how bad you feel. That's all you can think about. It's always not in the back of your mind. It's in the front of your mind. Your life is in the back of your mind. Working is in the back of your mind. The front of your mind is, what am I going to do to fix this? How do I fix this? How do I regain my control of my life again? How do I regain normalcy? So, and that's why I always say, if men went through menopause, they wouldn't tell women the things that they tell them when they're going through menopause, because they realize that it's not in your head. It's not like, oh, you're going through menopause, just get used to it. Like, no, mother effer, this is nothing to get used to. You try getting used to it. And so that's probably why I have a special spot in my heart for women who are going through menopause and struggling with it. Because once you experience the life-altering effects, the fear, the anxiety, the debilitation, like the willingness to grasp onto anything that you think will help you. And that's why there's so many charlatans out there pushing garbage supplements at women who are going through menopause, and they buy it all. Like, okay, give it to me. I'll try it. Anything that'll make me feel better. If you experience that, there's no denying that it's not the new normal. It's not something that women should just get used to. They shouldn't. And like I said at the beginning of this discussion, if men went through menopause, we wouldn't tell women the things we tell them, and we would treat it. We would treat it, because men, if a woman is taking care of kids and she feels like crap, I mean, the kids are not going to be treated as well, but the guy can't go to work. Now, all of a sudden, we have no income. We're going to lose our house. That's why if men went through menopause, you'd see how quickly doctors would be treating them. And they'd be treating them with hormones, even if there was risks. Because let's be honest, 90% of the drugs doctors prescribe, there are harmful risks associated with them. Why they've decided hormones aren't worth the risk, I have no idea. But I just wanted to share that story with you. If you know somebody who's going through menopause, understand that it is a horrible, horrible, life-altering event. Have some empathy, work on helping them. And for women who are going through these things, and people, your friends are telling me, oh, because you got women out there that say, oh, it didn't bother me at all. I think that the more lean a woman is, the harder it is to go through menopause, because their body's not making any residual estrogen and fat cells at all. So they tend to suffer the most. I think lean women suffer the most going through menopause. Women who have a lot of body fat, they'll say, look, I didn't even notice anything. Everything was great. And it's because their body was producing estradiol in the aromatase capacity of fat cells. But if menopause is tough for you, don't listen to your friends who go, oh, I went through menopause. It's no big deal. You know what? That may be you. Maybe you like skydiving. I don't. Everybody's different. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. Sarah is a wonderful person who helped me when my mother was in the nursing home and her home was being foreclosed on. Sarah helped us get out of a very, very tough situation, and she will forever be a good friend of mine. And so is her husband, John, who owned my favorite diner in Arizona, in Tempe. So let's see. We have other questions. Oh, I'm so grateful oh, this is so wonderful. Yeah, it makes me a little emotional. Could you recommend a holistic doctor? I don't think you should be looking for holistic doctors. I think you should be looking for doctors who treat. Reach out to the good doctor I had on the first part of the show today. Reach out to Dr. David Sweet. Rosensweet. He's got 2 websites. I'll put them up real quick. Hold on a second. This is just easier if I just do this. So his first website is where you can go get his book for free. menopausemethod.com. You have to email him through the customer service app, and they will send you a copy of the book. His primary website is David, D-A-V-E-D, Rosensweet.md.com. He spent his life helping women who are going through menopause. So I would start with him. He's a good doctor, but there's lots of other good doctors. If you PM me where you live, there may be a doctor that I know of that I can send you an email address directly. Let's see. I'll read the rest of it. I've tried Western Docs, and they just give me, just put it up, my age, prescription. Yeah, no, but you just need HRT. You really do. If you're going through menopause, you need HRT. Indigenous tribes do not go into menopause until their 70s. I believe that. There's no doubt in my mind that menopause has become a disease of modernity. Because I thought about that. I thought about, like, what did we do like 500,000 years ago when women went through menopause? This wouldn't have happened. So we can probably blame, let's say, premature menopause. We can probably blame on our environment, our diet, our stress levels, and our abandonment of the importance of sleep. Look, staying up late at night makes young girls go through precocious puberty. We know this. Melatonin crashes, puberty comes on, girls start budding nipples, they start having hair on their little vaginas, and they're only 9 and 10 years old. Why? Because they stay up late at night on their iPhones and watching TV. We know this. This is a phenomenon that's very, very well understood in the science. So I agree. I agree with you 1,000%. Most women would probably go through menopause much later in life if it wasn't for the modern lifestyle. And that encompasses everything. Thank you very much. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I had so many women on those. I still get emails from people, from women on the Power Surge forums asking me questions about posts I made once I started to unwind where the symptoms were coming from, especially hot flashes and anxiety. But yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad that women are discarded. Very sad. All right, that's it for today. I'm off tomorrow and Monday. It's a long weekend. I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. And I ask that you share this show so that we can help other people. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching and listening.
Yeah.